We're living in a paradox. Never before has it been this easy to connect on tap, and you can text anyone, see their life on a screen. Yet, loneliness is at an all-time high. In the US, recent studies show over 60% of adults feel lonely, and it's not just emotional, it's physical. Loneliness increases the risk of depression, anxiety, and even heart disease. So, what's going on? We're starved for real connection. Not shallow conversations on social media, but deep, safe intimacy, the kind that makes us feel seen. And this brings us to today's topic, avoidant attachment. If you've ever loved an avoidant partner, you know the feeling. One moment they're warm, affectionate. The next, they retreat, pulling away as if you never existed. And when the relationship ends, their silence feels like a knife. No texts, no apologies, just emptiness. So what's really happening inside them? Do they truly not care? Or is something else hiding beneath the surface? Today, we're going deep into the truth. Not to make you go back, but to help you understand this. Your love wasn't wasted. You touched a part of them even they were afraid to face. Picture this. You've just ended a relationship you poured your heart into. You cry, you ache, you wonder if they feel the same. But instead of a message, an apology, or even a tiny sign that they're hurting too, all you get is absolute silence. No sound, no explanation. Just you and a void your brain hates because it leaves too many questions unanswered. And in today's world, where breakups often come with long texts or heated conversations, that silence feels brutal. It feels like a slap to your worth. You start asking yourself, did they ever really love me? Was it all just an act? And then, in that storm of thoughts, you fall into the biggest trap, confusing silence with indifference. But here's the truth. Avoidants are not cold, emotionless beings like you think. Inside them, there's a real storm happening. But it's a storm buried under years of mastering the art of denial. The moment you walk away, their brain kicks into survival mode. Tell a story to avoid the pain. This was necessary. I'm better off alone. Love only makes me lose my freedom. They repeat this like a mantra that's protected them since childhood. Because for an avoidant, attachment equals danger. They learned that not from you, but from a childhood where love meant disappointment or control. So when you leave, they don't cry, they don't call, they don't send 100 texts. Not because they don't care, but because admitting that they care feels like the most terrifying thing in the world. They choose the familiar path, shut the feelings down. They bury themselves in work, scroll endlessly, date people they have no intention of opening up to. Everything they do in this stage serves one goal: keep the heart numb. Sound familiar? Here's the biggest paradox. Avoidants are not without feelings. They're without the capacity to face them. And their silence? It's not a verdict on your worth. It's proof of a battle. They're losing a battle with themselves. If the first stage of an avoidant is silence, the second stage is rationalization, a sophisticated defense mechanism that convinces them everything is perfectly under control. The moment the first wave of emotions hits, missing you, feeling empty, sensing the loss, they won't let it drown them. Instead, they flip the switch they know best, run to logic. They tell themselves, this was necessary. We weren't compatible. Being single means I can focus on my career. Relationships only drain my time and energy. Sound familiar? Because these aren't lies for you. These are stories they tell themselves to extinguish any spark of emotion that could force them to face the truth. I'm hurting, I'm scared, and I don't know what to do with that fear. Here's the core truth. Avoidants don't hate love, they fear losing control in love. Love, for them, feels like too big a gamble because it forces them to open doors they believe will only lead to pain. So after a breakup, they fall back on an old strategy. Rebuild the illusion of power. They work harder than ever, sometimes to the point of exhaustion. They set new goals, learn a skill, climb the career ladder, hit the gym obsessively. Some turn to casual dating, not because they're over you, but because they want to prove to themselves, I'm fine, I'm desirable. But here's the paradox. None of this makes them less lonely. It only freezes the feelings a little longer. Like a person with a wound who covers it up instead of healing it. They hide their pain behind productivity and distractions. Sound familiar in today's world? We worship busyness, see it as strength, but often it's just pain in disguise. Avoidants embody this truth. They keep moving to forget what they lost, but when night falls, when there's nothing left to distract them, reality returns. And that's when they realize all the control they tried to create is just an empty fortress. And inside, there's still a heart that never learned how to feel safe in love. Let me ask you this. Have you ever woken up at 1 a.m., grabbed your phone, and found your fingers scrolling for someone you swore you were over? If yes, you'll understand this part, because that's exactly how regret shows up for an avoidant slow, painfully slow. Here's the truth no one talks about. Avoidants don't feel the loss right after the breakup. While you're going through all the stages, shock, anger, grief, then slowly healing, they seem calm. But that's not strength. It's a delay. Their emotional clock runs months behind. At first, they shut it all down. They stay busy, date casually, do everything to convince themselves, I'm fine. But then comes that quiet night when the noise dies down and something shifts. Maybe it's a song. You know that kind of song, right? The kind that can teleport you back to a specific moment, the road trip, the first time your hands touched. For them, that song becomes the key that unlocks the door they've been holding shut. And suddenly, you flood back in. Or maybe it's when they open Instagram, just to scroll, and they see you laughing next to someone else. That's when something sharp stings in their chest. They won't admit it. They'll tell themselves, just curious. But inside, they're jealous. They miss you, and they hate the feeling of not being part of your world anymore. Their regret doesn't crash like a wave. It seeps in, like rain finding cracks in the wall they built. They start chasing the feeling elsewhere. They date. They try to copy you, someone as kind, as patient. But soon, the brutal truth hits. No one is you. No one makes them feel what you did. Not because you were perfect, but because you saw a part of them, even they've been terrified to face. You loved that hidden part. And once someone touches that depth, everything shallow feels empty. This is when reality gets heavy. They realize what they lost. But will they say it? Rarely. Because saying, I miss you, I was wrong, means stripping off the armor they've worn since childhood. Vulnerability, to them, feels like standing on the edge of a cliff and jumping without knowing what's below. So they do what they know, silence. They draft the text and delete it. They like an old story then disappear. Not because it's a game, but because the fear of rejection feels unbearable. And here's the heartbreaking paradox. By the time they see your value, you've probably learned to love yourself more, or worse for them, found a healthier love. And that gap between realizing and acting is the canyon most avoidants never cross. This is the part that hurts most. If they regret it so much, why don't they come back? Why don't they text, I miss you? The answer isn't that they don't care. The answer lies in their biggest fear, vulnerability. Understand this. For an avoidant, saying, I was wrong, isn't just an apology. It's a revolution inside their soul. Because their entire life is built on one belief. Distance equals safety. Closeness equals danger. This isn't just personal psychology. It's the product of a culture that worships independence. Modern society, especially in the West, glorifies self-sufficiency. We praise people who don't need anyone. We admire those who do it all alone. But what's the dark side? It plants the idea that needing someone equals weakness. And for an avoidant, that belief becomes a survival code. So when they realize they miss you, they don't say it. Because admitting they miss you means admitting they need you. And in their worldview, needing someone is humiliating. Add one more thing, pride and the fear of rejection. Imagine what they picture, texting, I miss you, and getting, sorry, I've moved on. For them, that's not just heartbreak, it's an earthquake that shatters their identity. I don't need anyone, I'm fine. So they choose the less painful option, silence. They tell themselves, maybe she's happy now. And they keep spinning in the same cycle. Avoidance, loneliness, regret, avoidance. A loop with no exit. Here's where philosophy comes in. We live in an age that glorifies freedom, but forgets the art of connection. Everyone wants to be independent, but the truth is, we're social beings. Connection isn't a burden, it's a biological need. Did you know chronic loneliness is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day? That's from the US Surgeon General, 2023. Yet, avoidance grew up in a world where love meant disappointment or control. They learned to survive by building walls. And now, those walls have become their prison. They stand inside, looking through the cracks, watching you walk away. They want to call you back, but they don't know how to open the door. Here's the brutal truth. Sometimes loss isn't enough to change someone unless they choose to face themselves. Some will stop and ask, why do I push away the ones who love me? And that's the start of healing. But many never ask. They keep running, wearing the mask of independence, until one day they realize they've outrun everything that ever made them feel alive. Philosopher Erich Fromm once said, "Love is not something natural. It requires knowledge and effort." Avoidants often never learn that art because society and their past taught them the opposite, the art of emotional escape. You can't save them. You can't teach them to love if they're not ready. And that's when you have to ask yourself, will you wait for them or choose a life where love isn't a battlefield? By now, you understand one thing. Regret isn't always enough to bring an avoidant back. And if you're waiting, what are you really waiting for? A miracle? A day when they show up saying, "I've changed." It happens but rarely, unless they truly decide to break their inner walls. So when do they change? When the pain of loneliness outweighs the comfort of distance. When they realize the cost of their safety is an empty life. We live in a society where loneliness has become an epidemic. The U.S. Surgeon General's 2023 report says, chronic loneliness is as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not just mentally, but physically: heart disease, immune dysfunction, cognitive decline, which means we are wired to connect, not to live behind walls. Yet the modern world, especially Western culture, glorifies hyper-independence. Be strong, need no one, do it all alone. You see it in ads, in self-help books. And while independence matters, when taken to extremes, it breeds emotional avoidance. This is the soil where avoidants grow the belief that love equals loss of freedom, needing someone equals weakness. But here's the truth. Erich Fromm, author of The Art of Loving, said, "Love is not a random emotion, it is an art. It requires knowledge, effort, and discipline. Love is a skill, and that skill demands the courage to be vulnerable, something avoidants have spent a lifetime escaping. Some will wake up, maybe after a divorce, a crushing breakup, or a moment of clarity. I don't want to die alone. Then they'll seek therapy, learn about attachment, practice connection. But can you wait for that? Can you bet your youth and your heart on a maybe? The answer should be no. For one simple reason: you can't heal someone by breaking yourself. Viktor Frankl once said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. And in our choice lies our growth and freedom." Which means you have a choice in how you respond to their silence and regret. You can wait, or you can walk toward a love that meets you with reciprocity and maturity. And here's the truth. You must tattoo in your mind, AG, they are not your miracle. You are your own miracle. Their silence does not define your worth. Their fear is not a reflection of youths, a reflection of wounds they've never healed. You have the right to love deeply, but also the right to leave when that love is met with immaturity and fear. Stop romanticizing sacrifice. Real love does not demand you trade your peace for the hope of saving someone. So remember this: silence is not rejection, it's fear. But you do not have to become a victim of that fear. Choose you. Choose a life where love is not a battlefield, but a home. Pause for a second and ask yourself, why did you listen to all of this? Not to become a detective decoding their signals. You stayed because your heart still whispers questions. Did they ever love me? Do they ever miss me? Here's the truth. Yes, they probably did. They loved you the way they knew how. They missed you in the way they allowed themselves to feel. But here's the brutal truth. Love isn't measured by fleeting emotions. It's measured by action. And their actions told you everything. They didn't choose you, not because you weren't enough, but because they weren't safe enough with themselves to love fully. Now the bigger question: what will you do with this truth? Keep circling in the loop of analyzing them, or turn that light back on yourself. Here's what society rarely tells you. We romanticize love stories, but we rarely teach self-love. You grew up on fairy tales where happiness depended on finding the one. But that's the greatest lie we've ever believed. Happiness doesn't start with finding the right person. It starts with becoming the right person for yourself. Think about this. If you wait for someone to rescue you from loneliness, You're handing over all the power of your life to another human. That's the formula for misery. Erich Fromm said, "Mature love is union under the condition of preserving one's integrity." You can't share deep love if you don't know how to love yourself first. Look around this modern world. We live in an era where people connect more than ever, yet loneliness skyrockets. Why? Because we confuse interaction with connection. We confuse attention with love. And sometimes we confuse the person who excites us with the person who makes us feel safe. Here's the message I want to tattoo in your heart. You don't need an avoidant to validate your worth. You don't need a miracle to feel enough. You are enough right now, right here. Imagine this. If you took all the energy you spend analyzing them, waiting for their texts, stalking their social media, and poured it into building your life, who could you become in 6 months? A year? You could learn a new skill. You could heal and become the version of yourself you're proud of. You could walk into a love where you don't have to beg for crumbs but receive love in full measure. This is not just a story about them. This is the story of you reclaiming your power over your own heart. You've lived through a painful chapter, but you don't have to repeat it. So if today you ask, will they come back? I'll ask you this. If they did, would you still want a love that makes you feel small or a love that makes you expand and feel free? You can't force someone to love you the way you deserve, but you can choose to leave the table where the rules were never in your favor. Real love isn't a power struggle. It's two people saying, I see you, you see me, and we both walk toward each other. If someone isn't walking toward you, don't walk toward them. Walk back to yourself. And remember this, their silence doesn't make you less worthy. Their fear is not your definition. You are not here to chase avoidance. You are here to become proof that true love begins with inner freedom. Choose you, choose peace, choose a love that doesn't make you doubt yourself every single day. And when you do, you'll realize you never lost them. You just found yourself.